Look, Hulk. It's all an illusion. You're being manipulated. Someone is trying to trick you.
He's right, Hulk. Banner is trying to trick you. He wants to get rid of you.
Banner! Hulk, listen! Nightmare is manipulating you, fueling your rage. He's the reason you've been turning into Banner when you don't want to. Banner! In a realm of dreams, the dreamer holds power! Remember that!
No coaching from the sidelines. I'm rooting for Hulk.
Empathy, morality, all that hero nonsense. That's all Banner's doing. His meddling is ruining a perfectly good monster. My monster. Without Banner, Hulk will finally be free.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Prepare for Prattle. Shock-Phobia Fest.
Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Shock-Phobia Fest, a month-long celebration of All Hallows Eve's most frightening films and comic spooks. And I'm here again on my own this year, recording on my lonesome, because again I will be away in Florida for at least a week in October for visiting all the parks and all the crazy people who live there, all the Florida men, and dealing with, I'm sure, all the right-wing nut jobs while I'm there. But yes, Florida does not have the best reputation, but it is a big holiday destination, and my family have decided to go there. And I'm not going to say no, because it's a big holiday, and we get to spend some time together. So, yes, I will be there. So I've decided, the patrons have decided the next option for us in the Shock-Phobia Fest schedule, and we're going to do a Clone Wars. So we're going to do a comparison of two films and see which one comes out on top. As I'm sure you're aware, there are several categories in which we judge these two films against. We've done it with comic books as well, but it's mostly with films that we compare, very, very similar films. And we're going to compare two films, both from rival comic book and movie studios. So we're going to look at Batman Unlimited, Monster Mayhem, and Hulk, Where Monsters Dwell. So, there's a few reasons for comparison, so let's just get straight into it. Both have monster in the title, both are animated features based on comic book characters from rival companies, both are set on Halloween, both released within a year of each other, both are extensions of existing products, both star Fred Tatasciore in very similar roles, both feature monstrous characters, as the titles would denote, and both end with the combined heroes fighting a giant kaiju type of villain at the end. So yeah, lots of reasons for comparison here. These are kind of one-off films. Again, they are connected in two ways. So the Hulk film is basically an extension of the existing show, which was Avengers Assemble, it was called, I believe, which took over after the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes got cancelled when it shouldn't have done, because Avengers Assemble is shit in comparison, but that's my opinion. And it's animated fairly well, much like Hulk Where Monsters Dwell, but we'll get into that. And then Batman Unlimited is actually based on a series of action figures, or a toy line, whatever you want to call it. And they made several films and then a few kind of web series or kind of short animations or short cartoons, whatever you want to call them, as a way to help sell toys, which is the classic way. Go all the way back to the 80s, every toy line had to have a cartoon. He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, you name it. They all had one, and some were more successful than others, so this is no different. Again, it's a show I was not familiar with, or a kind of style of animation, or there was a fair few Batman products coming out this time, so we're talking about 10 years ago now, roughly. And yeah, so I think there was another Batman show and something else. I think maybe the Lego Batman was out at this point as well. I'm not sure, but there was a fair bit of Batman shit going on, and fair play to Batman Unlimited, but I don't think anybody is going to say that Batman Unlimited was the best version, the animated version of Batman there is, because it isn't, let's be honest. And it'd be hard pressed to kind of, when you look at things like Batman the Brave and Bold, The Batman, or Batman the Animated Series, the original, or even Cape Crusader that came out quite recently, you can't really hold a candle to it. And again, it's going to be one of those that's kind of forgotten. But I know I've been speaking quite roughly about it, but let's get started with that one. So I don't want to waste anybody's time. So Batman Unlimited is set in a Gotham City which is very technologically advanced. So the police have like ray guns and phasers, whatever you want to call them, and they have flying cars. So it's kind of like Batman Beyond meets Batman to a degree. It's still got all the Batman characters, the kind of modern characters who would populate a regular Gotham, but instead of going for this kind of noir kind of sensibility, this kind of gothic aesthetic, they've decided to go with this kind of technological one, and yes, so it's set on Halloween, and this technologically advanced idea will come into play in the plot as well, and basically Solomon Grundy and Silver Banshee escape Arkham Asylum, and they run amok on Halloween night. And they are then pursued by Nightwing, Green Arrow, and then Batman and Red Robin come and assist as well. And then they manage to get away with the help of the Scarecrow, who helped break them out of Arkham. Nightwing and Green Arrow are subdued, and then they meet up with the Joker, who is leading this kind of villainous operation. He is then going about and trying to fetch various things, so he needs this crystal for some reason, which has been found by Cyborg. I forgot Clayface is one of the villains as well, and he kidnaps a computer genius who creates video games and is familiar with AI, and he is captured by that group of monstrous figures to do something as well, and they steal a few other things here and there to fulfill their master plan, complete their master plan of taking over Gotham, which is ultimately the goal. And Batman and Green Arrow and Nightwing and Cyborg and Red Robin all have to team up and find a way to stop them. So that is basically the general idea and the general plot. It's probably not very Halloween-y, because it's really only Halloween-y for the first, section, action sequence chase. Now, when I was talking about this being very technologically advanced, Batman has, for some reason, a mechanical wolf that can also turn into a motorbike and various other gadgets and gizmos. Now, I don't think Batman would need these things, and that's why you kind of get the feeling that it was a toy first and not just a cartoon first. Because again, the animation style, again, it's fine. It's not the strongest for me. It's kind of basic, I think. It's very exaggerated, and I wouldn't say it's bad animation, but it does seem on the cheaper side of things, the very basic, bare bones side of things. Again, I think some of the designs work for me. I think the Joker's a bit weird. He's got this very pencil thin nose. Again, I know that the the nose in the animated series was very pointy, but this is like he looks kind of like a woodpecker. Not a massive fan of the Clayface design. It looks a bit generic to me. I feel like there's a lot of figures out there that look like that, and also a lot of the heroes look really similar, like the designs and the hoods. You can tell, like, to save money, toy manufacturers will use the same models or the same parts or alter them slightly. So like the look of Green Arrow and Nightwing, for example, are very similar. The hood for Jonathan Crane the Scarecrow and the hood for Green Arrow look pretty much the same. So you can kind of tell they've cut a few corners. And there's a lot of characters here that I don't think need to be here, or there's like Green Arrow might as well not be in this. I don't think he adds anything. They don't do anything kind of that's in line with the character particularly, and I think you could have given his lines to Nightwing or to Red Robin or even Cyborg. I love Green Arrow. I think Green Arrow is one of the best comic book characters ever created. I love his kind of personal politics. I just think he's a great character, just all around, a really human, down-to-earth character. And again, somebody who, again, was initially a Batman clone, but over time they've gone, right, how do we differentiate him from Batman? And he has become his own staple, his own character. And again, he has his own fandom. Yes, there will always be, even on Arrow, they were stealing Batman villains and stuff, and it was the closest thing you will probably ever get to a proper Batman show. That works and doesn't work on several levels. But for me, he's a fantastic character, and there's such rich history there, from like the Denny O'Neil stuff, the Mike Grell stuff, which I've talked about previously. You've got to check that shit out. It's just amazing, and again, he continues to be popular, he continues to be relevant and progressive, and yeah, I think he's a great character. But he's an absolute nothing burger here, as Andy would say. I don't think he was here. I think the reason he's here is, again, to sell toys. That is it. And I think it's quite blatant that this is just a supplementary piece of material for that. I will give this, it has an absolute stellar cast. So you've got Will Friedle comes back, who was Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond. You've got Roger Craig Smith, who was Captain America in various things. He's also been, I think, at Avengers Assemble, he was Captain America. He was, I think, Chris Redfield in Resident Evil, Marvel vs. Capcom. He's played Batman a few times as well. I think Arkham Origins, I think he was Batman in it. You've got Troy Baker as the Joker. I initially thought he was playing Batman, but he wasn't. You've got Kari Wuhrer as well. And even in small roles, you've got people like Steve Bloom, who was Wolverine, and the Green Goblin in The Spectacular Spider-Man. You've got a whole host of characters. Yuri Lowenthal, who was in the Spider-Man PlayStation video games, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, the ones that were very well received. Kari Payton as well, and Fred Tatasciore, again, who's in both. He plays Solomon Grundy in this, and Solomon Grundy often is portrayed as a Hulk-like character in DC, and especially in animation, because he's a bit dumb and he's a bit thick, but he's slightly more villainous. A lot of the humor, again, playing a lot on the humorous side of these characters as well, but it's also like, again, the demographic for this is leaning younger, for younger kids, which again is fine. And I think most kids, you put this on, I think they would be entertained. There were some action sequences that went on too long, and I felt they didn't need necessarily to be there. I think you could have cut 5 minutes out of this. I think it's 80 minutes, as opposed to Hulk, where Hulk is 75, I think. And I think it would have been worth cutting at least one of these action sequences, because some of them don't really lead to much. Like, the idea behind what Joker's planning is that he has a computer virus that's an AI is kind of in control of it, and is basically cutting off and blacking out all of Gotham. So all the technology across Gotham, you're unable to use it, basically. And which I think is an interesting idea. I think it's a good idea given this Gotham. I think it's kind of ingenious, really, that's the plot, I think, because it is so technologically advanced. And what's so weird as well is Red Robin turns to Nightwing and he's using a cell phone or a mobile phone, and Red Robin doesn't know what one is. So that's how far, like, in the near distant future we are, far but near. We're talking to a teenager who's never seen a mobile phone, which is mad. So I think it's quite, again, an ingenious idea to go so far with the tech idea and push it to its upper limit. And again, talking about selling toys, the opening kind of stinger or intro or what have you for this is just music playing over Batman in various different vehicles, which again will be something they were selling. And I think the writers are doing their best to work in these toys as best they can, and like not make it seem weird or strange. And they're doing their best. But again, I think sometimes it doesn't work, or it's quite clearly like, oh, we've got to put this in. How do we get this in there? But again, like I said, I think the animation is pretty good. I think the writing is not amazing, but I think the cast again is raising this up. Like, again, I've just reviewed on Letterboxd Captain America: Brave New World, which again is a good, fine film. At worst, it's fine. At best, it's good. Again, I will say the cast of that absolutely raises that script. That script is not the best. I think the action sequences are good. I really enjoyed that, but it's certainly not a perfect film. It's not as bad as some of the MCU. You know, I'm looking at you, Love and Thunder, but it's not up there with something like Winter Soldier, which it is basically trying to be as best it can. But I think Anthony Mackie could make almost anything work, and I think he's a credit to him and a credit to his talent, and the chemistry he has with all the actors is amazing. But again, I'm dating myself now because we're in October and I'm talking about something that's just occurred the other day. But yeah, it's an interesting idea that that's what the Joker wants to do. That, you know, we live in this, you know, even Gordon can't operate as a policeman because they're so tech heavy. And then he gets out these like dusty books, and Alfred's talking about things. It's like, wow, we're so far ahead in the future. People don't use stuff. I think, again, the cast is good. The animation is okay. But yeah, it's not one of my favorites, I would say. It's not something I would, unless somebody pushed me to, I don't think I would watch any of the others. But again, it's not terrible. It just, I think there's some puns as well and some gags that don't really work. Like when the Joker he basically starts rationing or ransoming off people's ability to use technology. So if someone's is starting a rebel uprising against the Joker, if you dob him in, you can get 3 hours on the TV, or you could have your phone for an hour or something like that. If you see a superhero, they can do that, which again is an interesting idea. I think given this world, I think this is a genuine threat and a good threat and a good something that they have to figure out. And again, they talk about like closed systems and open systems, and Cyborg gets hacked into and he becomes a villain, and then the vehicles they use get hacked into, including the wolf motorcycle. I don't know why he has that. Why would Batman have a wolf motorcycle? It beggars belief. But there you have it. It is what it is. But the Bat plane and the Batmobile and everything, and then they have to destroy that and stop the villains. I do feel like there's kind of like a weird there's some stuff that feels like a little bit like problematic, like when during the finale or part of the finale or the one sequence, Batman goes into the virtual world and the Joker turns him fat, and I was like, right, what does this do? What is this saying? Haha, look, you're fat. Haha. Well, I don't think that's an appropriate joke, really, in 2015 to make fun of people's weight. I don't know. Just seems stupid. And I know it's probably a throwback to those kind of classic 50s, 60s issues where, the Flash would be on a cover and he's fat, and it's like, well, that's not the Flash. What's going wrong? What could be happening to him? And again, it's a way for people to sell those books, to get people buying, like, this is so weird. Let's read how this happens in the book. But it just didn't feel all that interesting. And then when he's in there as well, on the cover, you can see him riding a giant dinosaur. I think it's like a T-Rex because they've got the tiny arms. It's less of a raptor, but yeah, in the virtual world that he goes in, this VR world where he's trying to beat the Joker's virus, and the virus is just a copy of the Joker. He makes dozens of him, and again, that's an interesting idea. But then I'm like, do we need a why does Batman need a robotic T-Rex to win? I have no idea. And again, like the acting is there, the acting is quality, the acting is solid, and it works. And I believe that these are these characters. There's a great little sequence which doesn't really lead to much, but there's a bit where Nightwing goes into a hall of mirrors and is trying to track down the Scarecrow, and he's seeing older versions of himself. He's been infected with the fear gas, and he sees the Disco Wing costume, and he sees the Robin costume, and he's like, and Scarecrow's trying to manipulate him, and he's trying to bring out his worst fears, and he's like, you're so in control, and you're so tempered. What happens when you're not? What are you risking? Are you risking turning into Batman yourself? But then Nightwing's like, no, I'm good. I've already conquered those fears. And there was a fight scene with Silver Banshee and Green Arrow, which he has his bow broken, and then he resorts to, because they're kind of in a fun, the hideout is always like an amusement park or a pier or a, abandoned whatever. It's usually something, kind of theme parked or circus themed when it's the Joker. So yeah, abandoned theme parks is usually the thing, and that's exactly what happens here. That's where their initial hideout is. And he fighting Silver Banshee has his bow broken, and then he starts using he finds a tub of kind of baseballs, and he uses that to win. But he makes out like it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? I've not got my bow. And then literally 2 minutes later, when he's not in the fight, he can pull off parts of his costume and make a new bow. Why don't you just do that? You have plenty of time to do that. Just felt fucking stupid. And again, I think it was just a way for them to make kind of baseball reference and jokes and stuff, which not particularly entertaining or funny. Or maybe it's just to show that Green Arrow is a good shot with anything, kind of like a Bullseye type character, or a dead shot maybe. I don't know, but whatever it is, very, very weird. But yeah, I was saying about the kind of sexism as well. Like Silver Banshee, like the Joker gives all of his villains a role. So Scarecrow's in charge of the economy, and Solomon Grundy's in charge of the police, and Clayface is the chief engineer of ice cream or something, because he looks like chocolate ice cream. Again, it's not even funny. It's not a joke. It's not funny. And again, the Joker doesn't need to be necessarily funny. If it's a humorous thing, it should be funny. If it's, again, like it either needs to be not funny and dark, or it needs to be, somewhat entertaining. And that's where I think the writing falls down, is where it's kind of trying this kind of very broad comedy, and it really doesn't work. I think some of the Solomon Grundy stuff works because he's just a bit dim, and obviously he's a zombie and he's kind of Hulk-like, and I think he's that good a performer that those moments kind of work for me. Fred Tattershaw's performance, but yeah, for me it just didn't really land as well as they wanted it to. But again, a young kid watching this probably would laugh his head off, and and there's even a moment where, and again, I'll go back to the sex. I keep going off topic, but I'll go back to the sexism. There's a moment, when he's giving out all these roles, and he turns to Silver Banshee, and she's like a weather lady, but then he cuts her off immediately, which I was like, is that supposed to be funny as well? It's like, it didn't really come across as funny. It's just, you're silencing a woman's voice that is very powerful, literally very powerful in this thing. And I was just like, it's a very, very odd choice. And again, you've got Kari Wurr, who's a great actress. And again, she was in Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes as Maria Hill. And again, she's just a great actress anyway. We did Eight-Legged Freaks a while back with Math. And yeah, absolutely stunning woman. And again, a very competent actress. And yeah, I don't actually think they give her a lot to do. And again, I think there's too many characters as it is. Chuck out fucking Green Arrow and you'd still have the same film. And again, I think you could chuck out Clayface and still have the same film. I don't think you need these many characters. But again, they do, because they've got to sell fucking toys for it, haven't they? Or they're not going to do anything. And there's like other gags as well, where it's like, Batman does a selfie, but he's scowling. Great. A kid asks him for a selfie. Hilarious, But yeah, and I don't know. It's yeah. I'm not sure when the comparison will come in at the end, but yeah, I'm not 100% sold on this. Again, I think young kids would like it and would enjoy it. Yes, there's a lot of elements to it. It seems like overly complicated yet weirdly simple at the same time. And yeah, I think there's far too many action sequences, and I think some of the animation doesn't gel well with the CGI as well. It just seems to not. And again, it's very basic animation. Again, not bad, but like kind of very basic. And I can see them kind of struggling, I think, with the designs and trying to keep them in line with the designs of the figures. There is a kind of a cool element at the end where they grab like World War II era vehicles, because the Joker, Batman defeats the virus and he thinks that's the only place that the virus is coming from, because Joker wants to spread it to the entire world. That's the entire plan. And he's doing this during a parade for himself that he's organized. And he defeats the virus and they think, oh, great, perfect, sorted. And then Joker's like, no, I've got another place where my virus is coming from. And he gets into this giant mech suit. And again, they start using there's a tank. Green Arrow's in a tank. Red Robin, Nightwing are in motorcycles, kind of US military motorcycles. You've got Batman in a Spitfire kind of thing. And yeah, so that's a cool little element. I like that. And that's a fun little idea. And then we learn that the other place, which I figured out a million miles ahead of the film, but again, it's for kids, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so we have that, and then yeah, Cyborg is the other, the gem, this power source that's spreading this virus across the world is inside him, and then he has to connect with Joker's kind of armor once he comes out of the mech to end this threat. But yeah, and then the villains have a selfie with a kid at the end, and yeah, it's not my favorite. Not my favorite, I think, as you can tell. But there's fun to be had here. I think, again, if you're not taking it very serious and you may be watching it with your kids, I think you can have some fun here. It's pretty harmless apart from some of the jokes that I've mentioned. I don't think they all kind of work. Again, I asked these questions like, again, why would Batman need a wolf, a robot wolf, or a T-Rex? Who knows? But anyway, I think I've talked about that one long enough. So let's move on to Hulk, Where Monsters Dwell, which is a reference to the comic, which used to reprint the old 50s monster comics written by Stan Lee and drawn by Stevie Ditko and Jack Kirby back in the day before the superhero trend picked up again. And then they made the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, and the Marvel Universe was born, so to speak. Monster and romance comics were still pretty popular back then, so that's what they did. And yeah, it was a 70s comic that reprinted 50s stuff, which why the hell not? And then they made kind of they every so often they'll bring out a miniseries. I think in 2015 they brought out another Where Monsters Dwell miniseries for Secret Wars, again to kind of keep the rights of that title and stuff. So again, this is an extension of the animated series Avengers Assemble. Again, I wasn't much of a fan of that show in comparison to Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I think Earth's Mightiest Heroes is the shit. I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the best animated series ever made. Only got 2 seasons, but I think I was happy with that. I think it ends pretty well, pretty succinctly, and if we did get a 3rd season, I would have loved it anyway. And I think they're gearing up towards a kind of a Thor Ragnarok type storyline with Surtur and other characters coming into that. There's a lot of teasers for that in that season, so I imagine that's where it was headed next. But yeah, Avengers Assemble, again, like Ultimate Spider-Man, it's not really my bag. Again, if you're a bit younger and it's your introduction to these characters, you might really like it. I think I was most a fan of one I didn't really kind of think would work, but it was Hulk Agents of Smash, which again is the same animation style. And I think it's Hulk leaves the Avengers to set up his own team. And again, it kind of plays into this. And this idea of him trying to change the public perception of him being a monster into a hero, which comes into play in this story. So this story, again, unlike Batman Unlimited Monster Mayhem, this is very heavily inspired by comics I've read. So the original Defenders, like Doctor Strange would contact the Hulk and manipulate him sometimes into doing his bidding, but he did care for him, and he would use him and look after him, and he could stay in the Sanctum Sanctorum, along with the Submariner, the Silver Surfer, Nighthawk, Valkyrie, you name it, all the kind of Defenders team. They were a non-team, so they were never really like, they're all just kind of weirdos that kind of would come together when necessary. And I think eventually they were cursed to always come together by, what was it, Yandroth, I think was their villain, I believe, one of the early villains. But yeah, a great, absolutely batshit insane series about random characters being put together in a team, and it kind of still working and still being quite popular. It ran for over 100 issues. Again, various different kind of lineup changes, but the main lineup was usually, or the original lineup, those characters kind of had their own books and tended to jump around a bit, but yeah, I love that series, especially when Steve Gerber wrote it. It was this bizarre, weird, and like he steered into the weird, which made it even better because it was already a weird concept. It was a weird book, so why not? So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and yeah, it also kind of references a lot. So it has the character of Nightmare, who is the main villain. So if you imagine like Freddy Krueger, but at like a universal level, like a godlike level, that's kind of what you're looking at. Or if you were thinking like DC's Sandman, for example, and I won't mention the guy who's created him because he's been cancelled for legitimate reasons. So yeah, but yeah, imagine him, but totally villainous. This kind of Lord of the Dream Dimension. He is a demonic character, demonic presence, and he made his first appearance in the same issue Doctor Strange made his first appearance, making him basically his arch villain. He didn't really remain his arch villain; that kind of fell to Dormammu or Baron Mordo, but he was always the third one down. I always liked him. I liked his design. I liked the idea. There's some great storylines with Nightmare. Like there's one in Captain America when he tries to corrupt the American dream itself, which is very interesting. I don't think it entirely worked for me, but it's an interesting idea. And the idea is he wants to cross over into he's a fear lord basically, and he becomes more and more powerful as he feeds off the fear of many. And the danger of him being defeated is you could cause everybody in the real world to go mad because they can't dream, they can't have nightmares, they can't do that, they can't sleep. So again, that's fascinating, really interesting idea. He also rides a horse, which is a literal, like a black horse, so it's a nightmare. Get it? Nightmare, which I think is clever. Again, and he's tied in with the Hulk's history quite well as well. So he caused Bruce Banner around issue 300 or on issue 300 or 299, 298 to commit psychic suicide. So this is when the Hulk was intelligent, but started losing his intelligence. And he brought up all those kind of horrible memories of his past and his child abuse and things like that. And Banner just basically said, I don't want to live anymore, which led to a mindless Hulk going on a rampage. And issue 300 is basically everyone just attacks him, and then it ends with Doctor Strange having to banish the Hulk, this mindless, angry Hulk, to the what do they call it? The Crossroads of Eternity, that's right. So he basically would have various adventures, and eventually Banner would re-emerge, and they would come back and try and then I think they would be separated once that was over. But yeah, it's kind of a sad kind of. If you read Secret Wars, the original miniseries, you see Banner, he's already on that road to losing his intelligence. So the stronger he gets, he's starting to, the more he uses his strength, he begins to lose his intelligence, which is kind of tragic. And again, wonderful, just works so well with the idea of the Hulk and this tragic kind of monster figure and Banner and everything. So yeah, some wonderful stories. Nightmare also caused Betty Banner to miscarry their child, Bruce and Betty's child. That was an issue that Peter David refused to write. He said, if you're getting rid of the baby, I don't want to write that issue, but get someone else to write it. So somebody else did, and that was their idea. I don't know what it is about Marvel, but every time they need to like retcon something or get rid of something, they're like, let's make a demon do it, get Mephisto to do it, or Nightmare to do it. And again, there was another retcon moment where they I think they wanted to retcon a series of stories by Bruce Jones or some of the elements. So what they did is Peter David came on board, and I think it's called Tempest Fugit, the storyline. And basically, it's the idea of Nightmare using the fear generated by 9/11 to create his own child as a gateway to getting into the real world, basically, which is kind of a fucked up idea anyway, but it makes kind of sense given what he does and how he, generates that kind of fear and what he can do with it, and the nightmares something like that would cause the whole world to have is palpable. So again, some really interesting and unusual stories. I've always liked the character. Again, I like the design, the Ditko-esque design, and again the pale features and the hair. And I think his design in this is pretty sick. It's again a bit closer to like more of a vampire. He's got this big hair. He's got his costume's more red than green, which I don't mind as well. I still got the pointy shoulders, and the aesthetic is still basically the same. But I'll get into the story anyway. So the Hulk is summoned by Doctor Strange, who is fighting demons at this moment in time, and these young kids come trick-or-treating, and he has to kind of send them away before they get eaten by monsters. And he reveals later on, Hulk arrives and they manage to fight off these monsters. Doctor Strange says that the doors between dimensions on All Hallows Eve, are the thinnest, and especially for the dream dimension. And what he's been investigating is children have been sucked into the dream dimension and their fears are being turned against them, and then in the real world they are transforming into their greatest fears, like these monster characters. One of them looks very Jack Kirby inspired, like the design looks very Kirby-esque, which is again a nice little nod to those kind of classic monster comics from the early 50s. Again, I don't know if it's based on a specific one because there's so many kind of monsters back then. I couldn't honestly tell you, but it looks like it could be, so I'm not sure about that reference, but definitely. So the idea is that he not only does he bring the Hulk forth, he also calls currently the unnamed Howling Commando. So you've got Warwolf, Vampire by Night, Man-Thing, which, I'm on board, guys. I love Man-Thing, so if he makes an appearance, it's a win for me. And then also a zombie Jasper Sitwell. Jasper Sitwell is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He did die in the comics, and they resurrected him as a zombie, I believe. Or it was Dum Dum Dugan as well. I think he took a similar role, if not in that series. Or maybe he was alive, but Jasper was dead. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. He's in Winter Soldier and some other stuff as well. You'll have seen him before in various other things. He was introduced into the Iron Man comics, and Google him and you'll find all of his history online. But anyway, he's a zombie. So what Strange wants to do is to take the Hulk and go into the dream dimension and figure out what's going on. And while they're asleep, the Howling Commandos are going to watch over them, make sure nothing happens in the real world. And again, Warwolf is not the same as Werewolf by Night. It is a separate character and a very kind of 90s character. He's got like a robot hand, and he's very kind of, aggressive and brash. He's got big guns and stuff and doesn't get on. And again, the Hulk fights them because of it's a Marvel team up, film. So you're going to have the misunderstanding and then them eventually teaming up. But we learned that the Hulk has been becoming Banner at really inopportune times. And again, the Hulk is on a team. He's required to be strong and fulfill his role. But for some reason, he keeps becoming quote unquote puny Banner. And puny Banner is not awake. He's sleeping. So Doctor Strange has to kind of summon his unconscious mind and talk to him. And again, the humor here is a bit more kind of on point. I don't think it's amazing in comparison to Monster Mayhem, but there is something here that it kind of, there's still it gets a chuckle out of me. More, like, I wouldn't say, passes the laugh test or anything, but it still kind of lands mostly for the most part. And again, the characters of these kind of monsters and what Hulk is dealing with kind of, they relate, and again, they clash, and it kind of they talk about how lucky Banner is, or the Hulk is, to transform back into a normal human occasionally, where these monsters are stuck as monsters the entire time, and they're judged as such because they look horrific and scary, and, they're not judged, much like the Hulk was, but the Hulk is now an Avenger, and he's turning that narrative around, but it takes time, and, the truth will come out eventually once they see them. But again, even within S.H.I.E.L.D., it's kind of, the Howling Commandos are kind of a dirty secret. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of see that. But yeah, we learn that, again, Banner's been falling asleep, and they think that Doctor Strange thinks that he's being affected directly by Nightmare as well. And then we go into the mind of Banner and then into the dream dimension, and we learn that actually it's the Hulk's fears that are being preyed upon by Nightmare. That the fear of him becoming Banner again is what's causing him, because Banner has no issue with the Hulk. He likes what they do. He's happy with their arrangement. They're heroes. They work together. But the Hulk is still insecure about himself and what have you. Instead of teaming up with Banner, he's trying to smash him. The Gamma base, the original Gamma base where the Hulk was transformed and hunted by Hulkbusters and various other kind of memories that they're dealing with. And again, Hulk is trying to smash Banner, and Doctor Strange is trying to stop him from doing that. And Banner manages to conjure up a Hulkbuster, and I'm a real sucker for a Hulk versus Banner confrontation, whether it's in the mind, or it's imagined, or it's a psychic battle, or it's a physical one where they've been separated. I am a fucking sucker for one of those. And, there was a storyline way back where Banner was given the ability of Captain Universe in order to stop the Hulk from accidentally setting off a nuke, which again would separate them physically, which is again another amazing issue. Highly recommend. Another classic comic. So yeah, so you get a bit of that, and then Nightmare is manipulating these children, and he's pulling their kind of fear energy, and it's trying to trigger this gate. And the key for crossing this dimensional gateway is the Hulk. He is the one that's being manipulated. And again, Nightmare keeps whispering in his ear and telling him things and manipulating him. And again, it's like Banner's just trying to survive and do his best. And Doctor Strange gets captured, and then his fears we get to kind of look into his mind, and we see him as a failing surgeon, and his hands are failing him while trying to save a patient. And there's a lot of dark kind of imagery and dark ideas that they're exploring without going too far. But that's what I love about animated movies, is because they're not the Saturday morning cartoon where any kid can see them at any time. They're kind of a one-off thing. You can take more chances with them. You can show a bit more violence and gruesome stuff, and you can push the envelope a little bit with the content and the themes, which I appreciated here, because it definitely felt like more kind of spooky and creepy and weird and strange and dark. Like some of the things they're exploring, the kind of the inner, darkest, deepest fears and the prejudice towards monsters, and I love a good outsider tale. I love outsider characters because I've always gravitated towards them, whoever they might be, like the Thing in the Fantastic Four, or Wolverine and the X-Men, what have you. I gravitate towards that story and that kind of arc, and and yeah, I just love that idea. And again, I like when Marvel dips into its darker side, its more supernatural monster side. That's why, I've done so many kind of podcasts on various elements of that, because it is something different, and it's a part of their franchise that they don't often explore. They dip their toe in kind of Moon Knight and Blade and Ghost Rider, and again some Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing stuff here and there, but apart from that they kind of don't really dabble in it too much. But I wish they would dabble more, because I thought Werewolf by Night was fantastic as an MCU product, and I think we forget about that because it was just so fucking cool. Now, another thing I like about this, I don't really like Doctor Strange's design. I like the cape. The cape's big, flowing, very kind of Spawn-like, but he has this kind of bland grey kind of top, which didn't really do anything for me. It doesn't look or appear like, there's a lot of Doctor Strange costume designs out there, but I thought this design was really lacking. I'll be honest. So I wasn't entirely happy with this one. I thought again that the lighting was a bit bad as well. I thought it was a bit dark. Generally, I get that it's spooky, it's Halloween and stuff, but I did have to put the blinds down because I couldn't see what was going on. So I was like, yeah, maybe do that a bit more. But yeah, I think there's some solid acting here, some solid, I think the script is much stronger than Batman as well. The animation style, I think, is a lot stronger. There's a lot more. You can see there's a lot more money behind this one because they're already kind of making it. And again, it's by the same people who are doing Avengers Assemble. And I think it was their opportunity to go a bit harder, a bit darker, and try something different. So yeah, that's basically the story for that one. But yeah, I don't want to go too long with this because I could quite easily go over an hour with stuff like this. But let's get to the comparison. Let's rock on. I think you'll probably know which way I'll probably go for most of these. I think given what I've already discussed. But I wanted to do a kind of a family-friendly thing because I know I always do like horror stuff and things, but I thought why not give the patrons the ability to choose something a bit more kind of that anyone could enjoy. Again, a lot of the listeners are parents. We're at that age, guys, where everybody has kids or are married. So I was like, right, here's something you can watch with your kids, or if you think it's it's appropriate, or if it sounds appropriate. But yeah, it's not. There's nothing too scary in this one that a kid I don't think would watch. Again, there's some cool elements like Jasper Sitwell's hands coming off and legs coming off, and then joining him and him giving into his kind of like zombie bloodlust, and he does eat a cow's brain at one point, so which I thought was kind of humorous. And he's like, "Oh, this is delicious. What is this? Oh yeah, it's a cow's brain," kind of thing. So there's a little bit of kind of playfulness. And one of the children at the end, they're trying to escape, and they have to face their fear and go back from whence they came. And again, Nightmare tries to manipulate the Hulk into smashing this barrier, but he manages to trick him, and him and Banner kind of team up, but he still gets through, and then they have to fight a giant kind of twisted version of Nightmare because he can now fully absorb everyone's dream and fear and becomes this kind of kaiju horned version of himself. But unfortunately, one of the kids is bonded with the monstrous form completely. So when he wakes up, he's not his kid form anymore. He's this kind of monstrous warthog-looking guy. And then ultimately, he joins the Howling Commandos, and the Hulk names them the Howling Commandos because it thinks it's funny, and it's Cap's old unit and stuff. So they were like, yeah. And he kind of joins, even though he's a kid. I was kind of like, maybe talk to the parents before signing him up to a monster squad. You know what I mean? Maybe do that first. But yeah, it all ends quite pleasantly. It's some quite creepy music afterwards. It ends on after the kind of triumphant kind of victory. But yeah, a Man-Thing gets a few moments to shine. Using his ability, they do the whole. There's a lot of cool like again. You can tell they love the comics because not only do they make Doctor Strange do the incantations, so it's like the flames of the Faltine and the many moons of Manipur and the crimson bands of Sitarak. You get to hear all this lovely alliteration that Stan Lee used to write. And again, in the MCU, they shied away from that because they didn't want it to be like Harry Potter, but I fucking love that shit. I eat that shit up. I was like, give me that. I love that bollocks. And they do the, whatever knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. So that becomes an element. And like, why is the Hulk afraid? What Banner isn't afraid, but the Hulk is. Like, that's an interesting idea. So yeah, some great moments, great stuff. Again, Man-Thing is kind of doesn't talk and, is what he is, which again, comic book accuracy. So I appreciated that. Again, it's an interpretation of these characters, but it's still familiar at the same time. Unlike Batman Unlimited, they weren't that familiar to me. They didn't feel like the characters, even though a lot of the voice actors kind of are from that kind of world and have done them before and in different interpretations. It wasn't a big draw for me, to be honest. So yeah, and then yeah, let's just get to the comparison. So as we're aware, we do 5 categories: writing, acting, music, cinematography, and direction. So writing is going to the Hulk, amazingly. straight away. I'm not gonna I just think it's better. It feels familiar. It feels like these characters feel right. It feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. The humor's a bit more on point. It's got a dark. I do like darker themed stuff, so I'm glad of that. It feels a bit more kind of Halloweeny. If you're looking for that Halloweeny vibe, feels more appropriate. Again, great villain. Great characters, a lot of variety, and again, that's what I was missing from Batman Unlimited, was the variety in the characters, and each one of these characters in Hulk added something to the narrative, to the overall piece. They all got their moment to shine. They all got what have you. There's some moments where like Warwolf is literally like trying to blow up New York, trying to stop the Hulk from smashing everything, and then they go separate and hunt down these monsters that escape later. But yeah, 100% definitely Hulk where monsters dwell. Acting, now I think I'm going to give this to Batman Unlimited, because I think if not for the acting, it would be a lesser film. I don't think it would hold up. I think I may have turned it off if not for the acting. And again, it's like top tier. Like, I'll be honest, some of the names in Hulk Where Monsters Dwell, I don't recognize, but some of the voices I recognize. I think Doctor Strange has played Nightcrawler and several other characters, Marvel characters before. That voice is very recognizable. I think it might have been Angel as well in Wolverine and the X-Men. I think that might have been him as well. But yeah, his voice definitely kind of stirs something up in me. So yeah, I'm gonna give this to Batman Unlimited, because I think without Troy Baker and Will Friedle and Roger Craig Smith, Fred Tatasciore, who plays the Hulk in Where Monsters Dwell, it's kind of similar voice and similar kind of interpretation. He does play other characters that are not the Hulk or Solomon Grundy, like Beast. He's a wonderful actor. I think he's been Megatron as well a few times. He's a great voice actor. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give it to that, because I think without that, the gags with Solomon Grundy wouldn't work, and I don't think it would draw me in if it was worse. Again, I think the acting in Hulk Where Monsters Dwell is good, but I think the acting and the quality and the experience shows in Batman Unlimited Monster Mayhem. Music, I couldn't tell you a single track or remember a single bit of music from Batman Unlimited. So it goes to Hulk. I think it's very atmospheric, the music, creepy and weird and strange, for lack of a better word. So yeah, that's 2 to Hulk. Cinematography, it's got to be Hulk again. It's moody and dark, sure, and I struggled to see a little bit, but once the blinds were down, I could see everything quite well. That would be the only issue. I'd kind of up the brightness a little bit, but it works. It's moody, it's strange, it's dark, it's supposed to be. And again, I'll be honest, the kind of backgrounds and aesthetic of Gotham, this kind of futuresque, kind of technologically advanced Gotham, didn't really do it for me. It's just a lot of blue. Like, when I think about like Batman Beyond and that sky line and the character that city has, it's nowhere near as interesting or fascinating to look at. Like, that's so like Blade Runner inspired, and there's something so unique, and that city has a character all of its own. But this one, it's just like, a bit more technologically advanced, and everything's fucking blue. So yeah, that's got to go to Hulk as well. And then direction, Hulk as well. It's got to be Hulk. Yeah, it works. I didn't feel like the animation style was lacking. I felt it was sharp. It was well done. It was, it didn't feel like there was some moments in Batman Unlimited where there's a moment where it's a video game, but Batman is punching loads of goons, and there's a kind of an over the head shot, and it pauses, and he's not moving, and the goons aren't moving. It's a still image, but then we kind of zoom in slowly but surely, and then he starts moving and fighting the goons. And I was like, why did we need that? Surely he could have just been moving a little bit, because it just looks poor. It just looks like they meant to do something here, or they lingered just a little too long. I don't know if it was an editing thing, but yeah, just not great. not great. So yes, and then just Hulk. Hulk's better on every level. I think again it's better edited, better animated. I think there's a lot more money and time and effort spent on Hulk, where I don't think there was. This is so strange as well for DC to be lacking when it comes to like animated features, because I will say they have delivered pound for pound some of the best animated films of all time, not only of superheroes, but just in general. I think some of the stuff they've accomplished, like Mask of the Phantasm, Under the Red Hood, you name it. Like there's a million. It's not all Batman. It's not all DC stuff. But like when I look at that, I always thought Marvel should have like been doing that, and they did do it for a little while with Lionsgate, and they made a few animated features, but didn't quite work as well. Again, I don't know what it is, but yeah, like, and again, DC have kind of dropped the ball for me for a long time ago. I think after Flashpoint, when it became a bit too new 52y for me, and then they did I think they called it the Man of Tomorrow verse, which was the next thing. I think it worked better when it was kind of an individual thing. I always thought the DC universe should have done that, is like not do the connected universe, not kind of battle Marvel and try and do what the kind of business and success they did with their connected universe. I always think they should have gone the opposite way and done like an Elseworlds thing, where they could have had multiple Batman and multiple Jokers a year. One's a vampire and the one's a Knight of King Arthur. Like you could do that, and everyone could play Batman, and you could all have different interpretations of it, or you can have a different Justice League every film. Like steer into that skid, because that's interesting, that's different, and you could tell them in different ways, and you can have a bit of fun, for fuck's sake, as opposed to trying to. And again, it didn't work, did it? The Snyderverse just didn't end up working because they were too busy trying to play catch up when it's kind of impossible. There's no way you can beat them at their own game now. They created it, and even now that they're struggling a bit now, but still that universe is still ticking away with and it still works for the most part. Say what you will about the films, but the interconnective tissue and the references and the characters and the links and stuff to other films is solid. It still works. It makes sense in the universe, which you've got to give them credit for. They know how to do that shit, even with Captain America: Brave New World. But yes, so that is it. So that's another Shock-Phobia Fest episode with the Hulk, where monsters dwell as the victor. Makes sense that big green monster should win, much like the Frankenstein monster he is inspired from. So as always, I'd like to thank my patrons: Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musings, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Mike Byrne, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Rhea Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne. Thank you very much for your continuing donations. It's very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. You can find everything about me that you need to find on the internet at spiderdanandthesecretbores.com. That's BORES on the World Wide Web. See what I did there? Okay, yes, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's gone on longer than I thought it would, but I will do some editing and cut it down a little bit. But I think I haven't done one of these on my own for a while. So I think it might have been a very early one. I think maybe Race with the Devil and Devil's Reign, I think, was the last one I did on my own, and that was about the same length, I think. Or it may have been Judgment Night and Trespass. Yeah, one of those early ones. So back in the day. So it's been a while since I've done one of these on my own. I don't mind doing them on my own, but I always prefer having a guest because it's just more fun for me. But I don't mind. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I enjoyed watching these. Not perfect, but I had some fun with them, and definitely worth putting on for your kids this Halloween. Monster Mayhem, I think you might have to find elsewhere, but Hulk, Where Monsters Dwell is on Disney Plus, so you can watch that there. But thank you again. I hope you're having a wonderful spooky season. I hope you're doing all the things that you enjoy. I hope you're watching all the scary things, and just having a good old time. I'm going to be having a good old time in Florida. I think we are going towards the end of October, so I think maybe the last week in October, I want to say, because my sister wants to go to the new kind of Universal Monsters Epic world or universe. I'm not sure what it's called exactly. It will have been open for a while by the time we go. So I don't know if they're going to do anything kind of spooky. I don't know if they do the horror nights or something. So maybe some like scare mazes and stuff. I'm not sure. But I'd be up for those because, I mean, I used to work them. So yeah, but no, it's been a blast. Thank you for listening as always. And as always, prepare for prattle.